Hello everyone, welcome to this video. Thank you very much for clicking on it. I really appreciate it. Today, first things first, I would like to wish everybody a very happy new year. I hope you have all had a good holiday period, whatever it is you celebrate, whether you celebrate or not. I hope you've had a good end of your year and you are looking forward to the year ahead. May it be full of nothing but good things for all of us. Today I want to basically talk about my plans for 2023. This year has been a bit interesting, to say the least. I think this has definitely been a year for trial and error, figuring things out, trying to find the best way to approach reacting for me as it becomes more of a long-term thing. I think, 2020 and 2021 were very much about growth, about building these channels and, making my way in the reactor world, as unintended as it was originally. But this year has definitely been a lot of trial and error, a lot of figuring things out and trying to find what works best for me. I have gone through so many different plans and phases and tried so many different things, different ways of approaching content, how much content I consume and react to. I've tried different schedules, different ways of scheduling, and there's just been a lot. There's just been a lot of changes, and if you're a regular viewer, if you're on Patreon, you will know this, and I have to say thank you for bearing with me while all of these changes have been happening. There's no real blueprint to reacting. You just kind of have to figure out what works best for you, and that's definitely what I've been doing over the course of this year. So all of that being said, I, especially over these last few months, having taken time off and having dealt with a lot of burnout and various other issues over the course of this year, I've really had a lot of time to think and plan and take on all of the things that I've learned over the course of this year, figure out what works best and make it into a plan for myself for the new year. I'm not going to promise that there aren't going to be moments in the new year, or across 2023 that, things aren't going to change and, I'm still going to be figuring my way through everything, but I at least have a plan in place that, one, I am really, really excited about. I'm very excited to dive in and get started and just really dig into this new era and new phase of these channels, and two, it's a plan that I really think will suit me, suit what I like to do and suit what I want to do and need to do for the sake of these channels. So we're going to go through, there's a lot to talk about, so bear with me. I will try and keep this as concise as possible so you aren't here too long, but there's a lot to get through, so let us dive in. Starting off, I have some notes here, by the way. If you see me looking down, I have notes so I don't get sidetracked too much, Lord knows. Anyway, let's get started. So starting off with YouTube, this is the smallest section by far. There aren't a lot of drastic changes happening to YouTube. One thing that I found that really helped me over the course of this year was starting to only release videos on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays on YouTube, and then on Saturdays as well on Patreon. And that's going to continue. That's my plan. I really like that method, having the Tuesdays and Thursdays to, one, take a break from filming, and two, or the bulk of filming anyway, and to have time to explore other things that I want to do has been really, really helpful for me, and that is going to continue. So there is that. But yeah, no major drastic changes in terms of what content I'm gonna watch. My main aim is to just be more consistent and organized with regards to comebacks and other extra content and stuff. So yeah, pretty straightforward. It's basically just, I just want to be more on it, more on my shit. And that doesn't necessarily mean, when I say I want to be more on it, I don't mean necessarily that I want to, react to comebacks immediately when they come out. With plenty of comebacks, that will be the case, but I mainly want to be more organized in managing my time and making sure I'm not overwhelming myself. And if I need to wait a few days to check out a comeback, I need to wait a few days to check out our comeback, and that is okay. Learning to take time. Learning to take my time has been a very important lesson over the course of this year. So that is one of my main goals for YouTube. In terms of like content itself, the only thing that I really want to talk about is just K-pop catch-up videos. Obviously, there's been a lot of them recently because I was on break and there was a lot to catch up on. But my plan is to have them be... if there are enough releases over the course of a month to justify having one, there'll be like one, maybe two or whatever at the end of the month, and those will continue to be voted on by Patreon. So that's basically it for YouTube. Nothing crazy going on there. So let us move on to Twitch. Yes, Twitch is coming back, or I am coming back to Twitch. Twitch hasn't gone anywhere. I left. So across the first half of the year or so, I was really enjoying Twitch and watching content on that, but then between internet issues and then burnout and everything, I just ended up sidelining Twitch for the time being and just focusing on doing what I could. But now I really want to get back to it, but it's going to be a little different. Beforehand, what I would do was I would do like my YouTube videos in the morning, just on my own, and then I would go onto Twitch in the afternoon and do my Patreon content on Twitch. I'm not going to be doing that anymore because I find that although parts of it were really nice and I liked kind of sharing the interactions with you guys, there was also a lot of pressure that came with that, and I think that contributed to the burnout that I went through towards the second half of the year. So I'm not going to be doing that. I'm going to continue to do the bulk of like my Patreon content and YouTube content just at my own pace, in my own time, away from Twitch. But here is my plan. Here is my plan for Twitch. So if I am filming and doing YouTube and Patreon videos on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, I will be doing Twitch streams on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Obviously, the bulk of Tuesdays and Thursdays are going to be dedicated to me working on other projects, but for a couple hours, 2-3 hours, whatever, in those days, I'm going to be streaming. So each day is going to have a specific thing associated with it. Obviously, this may change and evolve over time, but at least for now, this is my plan. So on Tuesdays, it's going to be, for the most of the month, it'll be Patreon requests, but then on off weeks from requests, it'll be things like content catch-ups for things that I haven't been able to squeeze into YouTube, or live stage marathons for various comebacks that I haven't checked out, like the live stages that I haven't checked out up until that point, so on and so forth. On Thursdays, there's going to be a new series, which I will talk about later. We'll get into the details on that, but that'll be on Thursdays. And then on Saturday, and this is something that I'm quite excited for because it's something that I've been wanting to do for a really, really long time. And I'm not sure how it's going to go. This is one of the most... like, I don't know what this is gonna be like. I don't know how well this is gonna go down, how into it you guys are gonna be, but I want to give it a try at the very least and see what happens. But on Saturdays, I'm gonna host study with me streams. As some of you may know, I've been wanting to really dive in and learn Korean properly. And, you know, I've done bits and pieces on my own. I can very slowly read it, even if I don't understand all of the words. I can very slowly read it, which my mother was very impressed with, by the way, over Christmas. Slight little tangent. She had something that had some instructions, and you know how instructions have like a billion languages, and I was like, oh look, it's the Korean, and I started reading it, and she was like, what? And I was like, oh yeah, I can do that. I don't know what it says, but I can do that. But anyway, so yeah, that's something that I've been really wanting to do for a while, and I've been wanting to do it in a way where I can share that journey with you guys in some way, because one, it's great for motivation for me. It's great accountability for me, and also it might inspire other people who have been wanting to learn languages as well. So on Saturdays, I'm going to host study with me streams where, you know, for a couple of hours or whatever, we can study together, whether those of you guys who are in school, if you have schoolwork you got to get done, you can join us and we can just hang out and do our work together. We can work on languages. All of that, it'll be pretty chill, and what I'll have is like a timer set, so every 20-30 minutes or so we'll take like a little break, maybe play some K-pop related games, you know, like save one drop ones or stuff like that. And then at the very end is when I will do my, at the very end when we finish the studying and everything, we'll do a episode of a drama, maybe a movie, some anime, whatever. We'll just have like a little watch party at the end to celebrate our achievements of the week. So that's my plan. Like I said, that's very much the biggest question mark that I have amongst all of these things that I've planned. That is the biggest question mark. I'm not sure how it's going to go, but we'll see. We'll try it out. We'll see. If it doesn't work, we'll figure something else out. But you know, if you're interested in that, that is something that we will be doing over on Twitch. So yeah, that is the plan for Twitch. Is there anything else that I needed to say for Twitch? Oh, going back very briefly to, I meant to say this before, but the content catch-up videos. On Tuesdays, we know when I said we got Patreon requests, maybe live stage marathons, content catch-ups. Those are things probably for live stages as well, but especially for the content catch-ups. I'll probably take suggestions for stuff. Like, I will obviously keep track of some stuff and keep it in a playlist ready for the next one of those streams, but I'll also, you know, prior to that stream happening, take some suggestions from Patreon for other stuff that I may have missed or may have just slipped under the radar from me and stuff like that. So that's just a little note there. Also, in terms of the drama, like the K-drama and stuff, I am at this moment in the process of finishing up Hotel Del Luna. Finally, I know it has taken me way too long, but we're getting there. Hopefully, by the time this video goes out, I will also be posting the last episodes to Hotel Del Luna. We'll see how that goes, but fingers crossed that's the plan. But yeah, so in terms of K-drama stuff, because I'm coming to the end of Hotel Del Luna, that is something that will also be chosen by Patreon. I have a massive list of shows and stuff that I want to watch. I'll probably pick a few that are like my most want to watch, and I'll let Patreon pick whichever one. And that is what we will watch on Saturdays after our study sessions. So yeah, that's everything for Twitch. Now we move on to the third platform, and this is the one that I have the biggest chunk of stuff to talk about. Nothing crazy particularly, but just, yeah, there's a lot to talk about. Patreon. A lot to talk about with Patreon. So, first things first, First Lesson Friday is coming back. I took a long break from First Lesson Friday because I was just kind of, this year, like I said, this year has been a bit overwhelming for me. I'm not gonna lie, there's just been so much going on. I've been struggling with burnout on and off all year. It's been rough, but First Lesson Friday is coming back. If you don't know what that is, if you're new to the channel, First Lesson Friday is a series that I started, I think, very early on in my channel. It started off on YouTube, and then when copyright started coming for me with album listens, I moved it over to Patreon, and it's basically just every Friday I listen to an album. And it started off that patrons would vote for an artist per month and then vote on albums each week that I would listen to from that artist. For the time being, and this is something that I was doing at the beginning of the year, for the time being I'm going to be finishing up discographies that I've already started. So groups like Uta Sonia is probably going to be the first one that I finish because I only have a couple of albums left. I think I still have a couple of G-Friend albums that I want to do, some Monster X albums that I still want to do, so on and so forth. There's a bunch of artists that I've started diving into and I want to, you know, get back into that. Once we've kind of cleared a few of those out, we'll go back to patrons voting for artists that I do on Thursdays and Fridays any given month, but it's going to take us a while to get through the backlog first, but that's the eventual plan. So, Thursdays and Fridays coming back. Tick. Next, another thing coming back are variety polls. I never really got into a good routine with this, but this was something that I originally wanted to, like, start really doing, where I basically... There is so much content that comes out, and I have so many groups that I follow and love. It is physically impossible for me to watch all of the variety content that comes out. And to be clear, when I talk about variety content in this regard, I'm talking about things like Weekly Idol, like Idol Human Theatre, like Show to View, and you know, things like that, like one-off episodes, maybe two-part episodes, whatever, of those kind of shows. I'm not talking about like group specific shows, you know, like Channel 9 and whatnot. That, I know that's variety content, but when I talk about this kind of variety content, I mean those kind of shows. Yeah, there's so many episodes of them that come out, and I would love to be able to watch them all, but that's just not physically possible. There are obviously some groups that I will prioritize and I will check out regardless. So groups like Le Seraphim, like From Us 9, like Dreamcatcher, Billy, so on and so forth, like my tippity top groups, I will prioritize, and those will probably never end up on polls because I will just watch them regardless. But for all of the other groups that I love and would love to be able to watch all of the content for, those are going to go on variety polls to be voted on by patrons. And so with the goal of being that I can hopefully do weekly polls and maybe 1 or 2 episodes from whatever shows from those polls. I'm going to be figuring out exactly how I want to approach the polls, because we ran into a little bit of an issue when I first introduced this on Patreon, which was that, you know, obviously there are groups that are significantly more popular and have very large fan bases, and so they were always coming out on top on the polls, which is fine, but you know me, I love an underdog. I want to give them a shot. And so, you know, I started separating groups out. So we'd have like big 4 groups, for example, in one poll, and then I do like smaller company groups in another poll. So I'm going to be trialing and that kind of stuff to figure out what works best, so I can give, you know, a nice wide variety of groups a shot. Yeah, that's kind of the plan with that. I just I want to watch more variety stuff, but I keep getting so overwhelmed by how much there is. And that was a really big issue that I found towards the second half of this year, as I was just getting so overwhelmed, especially with how many comebacks. Like, there were multiple months across this year, you know, like January, July, June and July were big ones as well. October was a massive one where you just had this onslaught of comebacks. And what comes with an onslaught of comebacks? An onslaught of content. And it was just so overwhelming and so draining to try and keep up with everything, and I just physically couldn't do it. So I'm hoping that these polls will allow me to check out the things that, one, that I want to see, but also that you want to see me see. You get it, without feeling as overwhelmed and as pressured to watch absolutely everything. So that is the plan with that. Very excited for that, because yeah, that's been a big issue over the course of this year. It's been a big issue, so I was like, let's bring back the polls, that makes sense. Okay, so that's the next thing, variety polls coming back. Next thing for Patreon. Okay, so this is regarding like individual shows, stuff like Channel 9, Going 17, so on and so forth, a million and one things. I'm gonna slightly change how I approach reacting to those shows. So I have a big long list, big long list of various shows that I am in the process of watching / want to watch. It's a massive list. It is a massive, massive list. And so I've been trying to figure out, I mean, basically since the time I started my channel, I've been trying to figure out the best way to approach this, because I have the unfortunate habit of getting impatient and taking on a new show and then getting overwhelmed because I have too many shows going on at once. And, you know, I started with this one schedule where, and this was a few months ago, where I was basically, you know, I had different levels of priority, whereas like level 1 priority shows were shows like that I watched like, you know, an episode a week or whatever. And then level 2, it was like every other week, so on and so forth. And that kind of worked, but it also, there was something not quite working about it. And I think what I'm gonna do is, I've kind of got that in the back of my mind as like a foundation, but I'm also changing that a lot. I'm changing the big parts of it. Hi. It is me from the future. I was just going to edit this video and realized that I made absolutely zero sense while I was explaining this particular part of my plan. So I thought I'd just hop in and put it into more clear words. Essentially, what I was trying to say and failed miserably at was that I'm going to be approaching the way I do like variety shows and whatnot, like Channel 9, like Going 17, Times Twice, etc, etc. I'm going to be approaching that differently on Patreon, where essentially for the most part, for the majority of shows, I am going to do them in chunks a little less regularly. What I've done up until now is, you know, every week or every other week, you know, I do an episode, maybe 2, depending on the show, and, you know, I just do that fairly regularly, or at least I try to. And what I've learned over the course of this year is that doesn't really work for me, because, you know, there are some days, there are some weeks where I just don't feel like watching a certain show, and, you know, and then I end up, it all ends up a big mess and leads to more burnout and adds more pressure that I don't really need. So I'm going to be approaching it differently in that I'm going to do it in chunks, a little less regularly, but at least for every single show, I will do at least one chunk of episodes a month. So you'll still be getting the same amount of content as you would be if I was doing it, you know, in a more like orderly fashion, but it just means that I can be a little bit more flexible in when I do each show within a month. The exceptions to that are essentially just shows that, you know, are either newly coming out, like, you know, as they're being released, or I'm just caught up enough that I can't necessarily do them in chunks. So those, you know, I will watch as episodes come out, unless any given week I need to skip an episode and then, you know, I'll do a chunk later down the line. That's basically the plan for that. I hope that makes, no, that definitely makes a lot more sense than what I was trying to do before. But yeah, that's essentially the plan. And the other exception, of course, being when we do dramas and stuff, because those will be done on Twitch on Saturdays, all going well. So yeah, that's it. Back to past me. All good. Yeah, I guess just like the main thing to keep in mind is there are obviously groups that I'm going to prioritize, especially when they have comebacks, and when they drop certain content. Like, I think Le Seraphim is an excellent example. They drop a lot of content and I'm going to prioritize it because they're one of my favorite groups. And so there may be times where I make room and either pause or postpone something else just to make room for one of my priority groups, especially around comeback time, you know. I think as well, another note, this is something that I started doing towards the end of this year, when we started having these massive onslaughts of comebacks. When there is a period of time where there's just like a lot of comebacks from groups that I follow closely at once, I will put a pause on at least the majority of shows that I'm watching until such a time as things ease up and I can bring them back in. That is something that I started doing and I think that works really, really well. So that is that. I hope that all made sense. I feel like I waffled at some point there. It's kind of difficult to explain all of the thoughts in my head, but I hope it at least mostly made sense. Yeah, it's just going to be a little bit different, but not super different. Like, you're still going to get regular shows. It's just going to be in a slightly different way for some of them, you know? Anyway, that's it for the various different platforms. Now we will get to the big boy, my new series. Ooh, this is something that I have been thinking about and trying to plan for literal months. I've been trying to figure out how I want to do this, how I want to approach it, and what exactly I want it to be for months, and I have finally gotten to a point where I'm like, yes, this is the plan, and I think the perfect time to bring it in is with the new year. So, my new series that I will be starting in the new year is the Re/Discovery series. Not just Rediscovery, Re/Discovery. So, like I said, this is something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. But to give a little bit of backstory before we get into what is the series, one of the main reasons why I started this channel was with the purpose of discovering new artists and music, you know, that I wasn't aware of before. That was one of my primary reasons for getting started on this channel in the first place. And that I loved. I loved being able to like dive into new groups and, you know, listen to new music and just like take on all of this stuff like at the, you know, the first year or so of my my channel. But especially over this past year, and I think also towards the end of 2021, like maybe like the last like 18 months or so, I've kind of fallen away from that. And there were various reasons for it. Obviously, like I've been saying over the course of this video, I've been dealing with a lot of burnout. I think I have such a big bias list, it can be really hard to kind of make the space to take on new groups, even if I don't end up biasing those groups. Just the process of finding time to watch their music videos, listen to their albums, so on and so forth, can be really difficult when you have like 24 groups you're trying to keep up with in terms of their content, you know? So yeah, there's a lot that I've fallen away from, a lot of groups that I've you know, taken a step back from, and even groups that I knew and, you know, really enjoyed before I started my channel, I have ended up stepping away from. I think 80s and Mamamoo are two really good examples of that, like groups that I absolutely loved prior to starting my channel, but with how overwhelming these last couple of years have been, have just ended up kind of unintentionally taking a step back. And you know, that's just how it goes. But there are a lot of artists that I started diving into but have since moved away from, and so many more that I still want to dive into and start my journey with, and I haven't yet. So this series was born from my desire to get back on track with that. So the plan for now is to take an artist per month and spend time diving or re-diving into them. This will mainly be happening on Twitch. Like I said, on Thursdays, the Twitch stream on Thursdays will be dedicated to this series. And yeah, it'll be an artist a month. So the first stream in the month will be going through all, or, you know, we may end up having to do that in parts depending on the size of the artist and how long they've been around, but like all the MVs, and if they have a shorter, you know, lower number of MVs, it might also involve things like dance practices or special clips, performance videos, stuff like that. It completely depends on the size of the discography of the artist, but like that's like the first stream. That's the plan for the first stream in each month. And then the second stream will be a few albums. This will be voted on by Patreon if the discography is quite large. Like if there's, you know, tons of albums, I will ask them to pick maybe 3 or 4 that we can check out on stream together in that stream. And then the remaining streams for each month will depend very much on the artist. So it could be that we watch some variety stuff, it could be we watch some live stages, it could be more albums, or just general content requested and suggested by, you know, you guys, whether that be Patreon or Twitch. Yeah, it completely depends on what the artist is, but my plan is to announce a loose breakdown and plan of what the streams will individually consist of when I announce each artist at the beginning of the month. So yeah, that's kind of the rough plan. As this is a new series, again, there's going to be a lot of trial and error figuring out what works best, but we'll get there. Full VODs of all of these streams will be up on Patreon, and if they're not muted or blocked, they will also be available for Twitch subs, especially with the MVs and the albums. As we know, or you may not know, but music in general on Twitch, when it comes to VODs, ends up muted a lot of the time. So yeah, just be aware of that. You know, variety stuff is usually absolutely fine, but that stuff can be a little bit dodgy. But regardless, the full VODs will be available on Patreon, and what I will be doing for the MV streams, and you know, those kind of content streams, I'll be doing edited down versions made for YouTube. It may be, depending on, you know, the size of the VOD or how many MVs we check out or how much I had to say, it might be that I do that in a couple of parts, you know, depending we'll see depending on the artist, but yeah, like edited down versions will be put on YouTube for you guys to see here. And I may do this for some of the other streams, but copyright can get really dodgy when it comes to various things on YouTube, so we'll see. It's also a lot of extra work and I don't want to put too much pressure on myself, but I know I at the very least want to do the MV streams into an edited down version for YouTube. So yeah, that's the rough plan for there. I have a lot of artists on my list already for what I want to do with this, and eventually I will get to the point where I will ask patrons to vote on which artist I do. But for now, the list is very, very long, and there's a few that I really want to prioritize and dive into first to kind of kick us off and get us started while I'm figuring everything out. These artists, by the way, you know, we've got K-pop artists, we've got K-hip-hop, R&B, even some J-pop artists that I want to do, so on and so forth. There's a lot that I want to do, and I will also take suggestions from people in the future as well. Eventually, once we start diving into a bit more of this list, I will ask you guys for some suggestions. But yeah, that's the rough plan. So I am sure, well, you may not be, but I'm sure there are some people at least that are interested in what the first artist is going to be. And it kind of seemed appropriate, you know, for like a new series to kickstart it with someone big. So I decided it's gonna be BTS. The first group that we're gonna do in the Re/Discovery series is BTS. I've been wanting to kind of dive further into their stuff for a long time, and I just haven't really figured out how exactly I want to do that, because there is a bunch of stuff that I have already seen and stuff that I do already know, but it's been so long since I did that, because, you know, that was stuff that I largely checked out prior to starting this channel. It's been so long, I just couldn't figure out how I wanted to do it, but then I had the idea for this series and I was like, perfect, cool. I will rediscover BTS for myself, and that is my plan. So yeah, we'll do their MVs from beginning to end, and then we'll do a few albums, and we'll see what happens from there. I would like to do some variety, but all of their variety is either like long form episodes, so like 45 minutes to an hour or longer, or there's just so much of it. I don't really know where to start, so I may have to take some suggestions on what we do for the last 2 streams in the month, or last 3 streams in the month. I can't remember how many weeks there are in January, but yeah, that is the plan, and I'm very, very excited for it. I hope you guys enjoy this series. To give you an idea of some other groups that are on the list that you may be able to expect in the future, I mentioned 80s earlier. 80s are a group that I really want to do. I want to dive into BoA. Really want to dive into BoA. Like I said, there's some J-pop stuff that I want to get into, various hip-hop and R&B Korean artists that I want to do. Who else is on the list? The boys are on the list. They're also on the list. Oh my god, I've gone completely blank. I don't have my list in front of me, so I cannot remember off the top of my head, but there are a lot of artists on it. And like I said, I will take suggestions eventually as well. So that is my plan for 2023. That was a very long video. That was a lot of me talking. Thank you for listening if you listened to this whole thing. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I am super excited. I'm super excited to get started on all of this. I think it's going to be, I think it's going to work out really, really well for me. You know, there's some things that I'm still going to be figuring out, but I think this sets a really good foundation for myself, and I'm just really ready to dive into a new year and get started. So I hope you guys are looking forward to that. And yeah, Happy New Year. Happy fucking New Year. I hope you guys have an amazing 2023. You know, regardless of whether 2022 has been a great year for you or not, I hope 2023 brings you good things. and lots of health and happiness and all of that jazz. Thank you so much for watching, not just this video, but just in general on the channels. Thank you so much for supporting, whether you just watch the odd YouTube video here or there, or you are someone over on Patreon that's been supporting for ages. It doesn't matter to me. I am grateful for all of you. Just thank you so much for sticking with me, for hanging out, and just enjoying K-pop. Enjoying K-pop with us all. Anyway, I'm gonna end this one here now. Thank you guys very, very much for watching again. I will see you in the next one. I will see you in the new year. Bye-bye.